Welcome to your story hour. We hope you're ready for an exciting story.
But first, I suggest that you put on your winter gear.
Winter gear, Uncle John. Why so?
Because today's story revolves around a very cold place, the North Pole to be exact.
Oh, brr. That certainly is a cold place. A place where even the Inuit people, often known as the Eskimos, hadn't set foot until Commander Perry led an expedition there in, what was the year? 1909?
That's right. You see, back in the early 1900s, exploration of our planet was as exciting as space travel is today.
Very true. So I'm guessing this story is all about Commander Perry and his attempts to reach the very top of our world.
Not quite, Aunt Nikki.
Oh?
Although Perry's victory will be included as part of our story, the real focus is on Matthew Henson, Commander Perry's assistant.
His assistant? He helped Perry reach the pole?
Not only helped him, but may actually have... Well, why don't we just begin at the beginning and let Aunt Carol take it from there?
All right.
Listen now to the story of Matthew, the Kind One.
On August 8, 1866, Matthew Alexander Henson was born on a farm in Maryland to sharecroppers who had been freeborn before him. Unfortunately, Matthew's mother died when he was very young, and soon after his father remarried. Sadly, while Matthew was still a boy, his father died as well, and some say that his stepmother, burdened with the task of providing for all the children, lashed out at young Matthew.
Aha! So I've caught you sneaking food again, have I?
But I'm so hungry and...
This switch will take the hunger right out of you, boy.
Ow! Ow!
You get up to your room. Right now!
Soon, young Matthew was sent to Washington, D.C. to live with his uncle, who paid for him to attend school briefly. But before long, his uncle died as well, and by the age of 11, Matthew was on his own. He ended up washing dishes for a kind woman named Janie Moore, who owned Janie's Home-Cooked Meals Cafe.
My, Matthew, you are a speedy boy. Why, you already got the dishes most done.
Yes'm, Aunt Janie.
You get that for me, please, Matthew?
Yes'm.
Afternoon, Master Matthew.
It's Rufus, ma'am.
Well, you tell Rufus to come on in now. I know he's got to be hungry again, and you know, Matthew, I can't turn none of God's children away.
Although Janie Moore provided food and shelter, along with much-needed kindness, Matthew began to dream of making something more of himself. He had always been charmed by the stories sailors told of their adventures at sea, and he meant to capture a bit of that adventure for himself.
You sure, Matthew? You really want to go to sea?
Oh, yes'm.
But how?
I'll walk to Baltimore, to the waterfront, and I'll...
But Matthew, the waterfront can be a dangerous place, especially for the likes of us. There's people don't like Negroes so much, and you being still a boy.
I'm not a boy anymore, Aunt Janie. I'm almost a man.
It's gonna take a while for you to be a grown man, Matthew. But, well, I guess I can't stop you. I sure am gonna miss you, though.
Oh, Aunt Janie, I'll never ever forget you.
Here now. You take this dollar with you. And you take care now, you mind?
It was a 40-mile hike to Baltimore, but once Matthew arrived at the docks, he was filled with excitement. As he stood beside a three-masted ship with the name Katie Hines emblazoned in gold on its side, he noticed a man standing nearby, a man of authority.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, boy, what is it?
Well, sir, are you a captain of a ship? Of the Katie Hines, I mean?
Well, as a matter of fact, I am. Captain Childs, to be exact. Who's asking?
Me, sir.
I mean, what's your name, son?
Oh, Matthew Alexander Henson, sir.
Well, what do you want, Matthew Alexander Henson?
I don't suppose.
Yes?
I walked all the way from Washington, sir, 'cause I want to go to sea.
And what do your parents have to say about that?
They died, sir, a long time ago.
I see.
I've been working at Janie's Home-Cooked Meals Cafe for my keep. I know how to do a lot of things.
Well, now, Matthew, you might just be in luck. I'm in need of a cabin boy, and you seem to have uncommon courage, striking out on your own as you are. I don't suppose you'd be interested in the position.
Really? You're a cabin boy?
Come on, Matthew. follow me aboard. And these are my quarters, Matthew. You'll spend some of your time in the galley helping the cook, but you'll be here with me much of the time keeping everything shipshape.
You have so many books, Captain.
Do you know how to read, Matthew?
Some, sir.
Well, my boy, by the time we're done, you will have read every book in my library.
True to his word, during the 5 years that Matthew traveled on the Katie Hines, the kindly captain taught him many things, including history, geography, mathematics, navigation, and more.
Now, as you can see from this map, Matthew, we'll soon be rounding Cape Horn, here at the very tip of South America, and it will be rough sailing.
Captain Childs had recognized Matthew's potential on the dock that very first day, and knowing that the young Negro boy would have no chance at a good life alone in the world, he essentially adopted Matthew as his son and taught him well. Sadly, however, when the captain died in 1883, Matthew, now 19 years old, found it hard to secure decent employment once he was back on shore. Finally, after returning to Washington, D.C., he landed a job as a stock clerk in a clothing and hat store. Then one day,
Matthew, please bring me a sun helmet, size 7 3/4.
Yes, sir, Mr. Steinmetz. Let's see. Here we are. Just as you needed, sir. 7 3/4.
Thank you. Matthew, meet Lieutenant Robert Perry, engineer for the U.S. Navy.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Matthew, is it?
Yes, sir. Matt Henson.
Lieutenant Perry is heading to Nicaragua.
Oh.
Yes. I've been commissioned by the Navy to find a path to dig a canal across Nicaragua.
Well, it's certainly hot in Nicaragua. No wonder you need a sun helmet.
And that's not the only thing I need. I'm searching for team members, and I need a valet.
Well, Matthew here has a good deal of sailing experience.
Oh? Truly?
Yes, sir. I'd spent 5 years at sea, under the command of Captain Childs.
no one knew at that moment, but the meeting between the adventurous Lieutenant Robert Perry, tall, thin, red-headed, and sporting a drooping mustache, and Matthew Henson, 10 years Perry's junior, solid, experienced, and steady, was to begin a relationship that would last many years. Perry hired Matthew as his valet on the spot, and once in Nicaragua, Matthew proved himself to be trustworthy and resourceful. So it came as no surprise that, as they were sailing back home, Perry revealed his true ambition to his loyal assistant.
Matthew, it has been my goal since I was a boy to explore the Arctic.
The Arctic, sir?
Yes. I mean to begin by being the first explorer to cross Greenland's ice cap. And...
What?
Matt, you're smart, capable, persevering, eager for a challenge. I want you to go with me to Greenland as a regular member of my exploration team.
Matthew readily agreed, and once they were back in the United States, Perry began a campaign to raise funds for the trip, which took months to accomplish. Meanwhile, Matthew went back to work at Steinmetz's store. But by the time enough money was in place for the expedition, another man, Fridtjof Nansen of Norway, had crossed the narrow southern end of Greenland. However, before long, Perry had a new plan and sent for Matthew.
The narrow tip of Greenland has been crossed, true, but the much broader expanse to the north in Greenland is still unexplored, and who knows, it may stretch all the way to the North Pole.
Do you really think so?
Well, I mean to find out. I want to be the first man to stand on the top of the world. I've been able to raise enough money to hire a ship and to buy equipment we'll need to launch what I call the North Greenland Expedition, but, well, I don't have the funds to hire you to go.
I see.
But will you? Will you go with me, Matthew? I need.
Yes, sir. Rest easy, sir. I'll go. That first day I met you in the store, I knew you were a man who was going to make a name for yourself. So yes, I want to be part of the adventure. When do we leave?
As word of Perry's plans became known, the press scoffed at his chances of success. The North Greenland Expedition's team was inexperienced, they said, and when they learned that Perry planned to take his new wife along, they grew even more skeptical. And then there was the crazy idea of taking a Negro to the Arctic. Even Lieutenant Scapty, Peary's replacement at the Navy Yard in Philadelphia, ridiculed the idea.
Everybody knows that Negroes aren't made for the Arctic, Henson. It'll kill you, for sure. Tell you what, if you return, and if you have all 10 of your fingers and toes still attached, I'll pay you $100.
The expedition launched forth for the North in June of 1891. Their boat, the Kite, was loaded with enough supplies to last for their adventure, which they estimated would require a year and a half. Besides the ship's crew, the expedition party included 4 members in addition to Perry, his wife Josephine, and Matthew. The Kite bravely fought its way past glaciers and icebergs and through leads, or narrow gaps in the ice, finally ramming its way forward to McCormick Bay, Greenland. It didn't take long for the expedition party to make preparations atop the vast Arctic ice cap.
Since we can't make the trip over the ice until spring, we'll need to get established here for a brutal winter, Matthew.
Yes, sir. I'll get started on building the house right away. And during the winter months, I'll make the sledges we need.
By then, it will be so cold we can't use nails.
True. Nails will simply shatter. I'll do what I've heard the Eskimos do. Hold sledges together with strips of walrus hide. The Inuit Eskimos are experts at survival here in the Arctic.
So I've heard. I'm sending some of our party to find Eskimos to join our expedition.
Oh, wonderful. I'm eager to meet them.
On August 8th, Mrs. Perry baked a cake for Matthew's 25th birthday, and on the 18th, the men returned with 4 Eskimos, Ikwa, his wife, and their 2 children. The minute they spotted Matthew, their eyes brightened, and pointing to his dark skin, Ikwa nearly danced with excitement.
Inuit! Inuit! Inuit!
Well, they think you're one of them, Matt. An Eskimo because of your dark skin.
Inuit! Inuit!
From that moment on, the Eskimos, all of them who would eventually join Perry and Matthew in the Arctic, looked on Matthew as a long-lost brother. They were delighted to teach him everything, even their language, which Matt quickly learned. They called him Mari Paluk, Matthew, the kind one.
Mari Paluk, we will teach you to be a great hunter. Seals and walrus, foxes, bears, reindeer, and more. And my wife here.
I will chew the animal furs before I sew them into clothes for you.
Chew them? Furs?
It is the only way to make them soft.
Your thick wool coat. It will not keep you warm here. You and the others must wear the furs. Igloos are easy to build. Every night on the trail, you can build a new one, so you can keep going the next day. Just cut the blocks of snow, like this.
Uta! The dogs, they seem to have a mind of their own.
Try again, Mari Paluk. You have to crack the whip like this, just over their heads, and call out, Huck, Huck, to get them going.
Huck, Huck.
You must be their master. Try again.
Huck!
Huck! Yes, yes!
And on it went. Matthew was such an avid student that it was said that he became more Eskimo than the Eskimos. And he was so loved by the native people that when a young boy was orphaned, they gave him to Matthew as an honor.
Here, good look too. I've made a bed for you right under my berth.
I look just like you now, with my new clothes.
Yes, after your bath and haircut.
Unfortunately, Perry didn't reach his goal to become the first man to stand on top of the world during his first attempt, nor on the second expedition, or the third. The Eskimos, ever superstitious, thought their evil spirits of the north were preventing success.
Mari Paluk, it is Kokoya, the evil spirit of the ice cap. He is angry.
And Tornasuk, he would swallow us up in the wide leads down into an icy grave.
But in spite of terrible conditions that nearly killed them all, Perry and the expedition did bring back 3 meteorites, the largest and heaviest ever transported by men. Oh yes, and Matthew did collect his $100 from Lieutenant Scapty.
Let me see. Yes, yes. Unbelievably, you have all 10 fingers.
And 10 toes as well, sir.
Well, Henson, here's your $100.
Between each of the expeditions, Matt had to find work to survive while Perry raised funds, although the sale of the meteorites helped significantly. The expeditions that followed over the years, 4, 5, 6, 7, took them ever nearer to their goal each time. Matthew was the best and most experienced of all Perry's expedition members. Yet early on, Perry had felt that the college-educated scientists and team members who were with them would make the most capable explorers. But over time, he came to realize that Matt Henson was superior to them all. Matthew seemed to know how to handle every emergency. He fearlessly plowed through storms, cleverly repaired broken sledges, and went on hunts to supply food. And in more than one instance, Matt's knowledge saved the expedition, even once when Perry's life was in jeopardy.
We're back now, sir, to base camp, and
Thank you, Matt, for carrying me. I would have never made it back without you.
Here now. I have to pull your boots off. There.
My feet are frozen solid. They look like marble.
Here, sir. I'll just raise my fur covering and put your feet directly on my stomach. I learned this trick from the Eskimos. The warmth of my body will help thaw your feet.
Fortunately, Matt's quick thinking did help to save Perry's feet. But once they were back on the ship, most of his toes had to be amputated. However, Perry was a determined man, and he learned to walk with a slightly odd sliding motion. Finally, in 1908, Perry decided to make his 8th and final attempt to reach the pole. And again, Matthew was at his side, along with several seasoned scientists and explorers.
Matt, our newest ship, the Roosevelt, is designed as an icebreaker, so we should be able to push our way through the ice to the northernmost coast of Greenland.
From there, I'll sledge our supplies to the northern tip of Ellesmere Island and establish a base camp before winter sets in. We're well supplied, sir. Tons of food, 19 sledges, 133 dogs.
And 22 of the best men I could find, including several of your Eskimo friends. And Matt.
Yes?
We'll be using a relay system once we get started in the spring. One team will start out and prepare the trail. When they're exhausted...
Oh, and they will be, sir, exhausted, that
Yes.
is. Just by building snow bridges over the pressure ridges. Some of the ridges, caused by the moving flows smashing together, are as high as a 5-story building.
Exactly. So at some point, they'll make camp and then return after they rest. Another team will be right behind them. And because the trail will now be easier, they'll be able to go farther and keep smoothing the trail ahead. Then they'll make camp, rest up, and return to base, and so on and so on.
Plans progressed nicely. When the weather began to break, Perry's expedition with its relay teams was poised to begin their run for the North Pole. Each man selected a personal item to take with them, and for Matt, it was his Bible. On February 28th, the first of the teams started out, and by the next morning, Matt's team was the last to leave base camp and follow. Everything went well until the teams came to a screeching halt at the Big Lead, a wide stretch of open water that had caused critical delays on previous expeditions. There was nothing to do but wait until it froze over again. Still, it would be a crossing fraught with danger, and the Eskimos of the party were growing nervous.
It is the work of Tornasuk, Marie Paluk. He is trying to kill us. We are going back. All of us Inuit.
Has Tornasuk ever won when you are with us, Uta? Me and Commander Perry.
No, never. But...
Then please, stay with us. All will be well, you'll see.
If you go ahead, Marie Paluk, then we will go too.
Once the Big Lead froze over, they pushed onward across the treacherous, blizzard-swept and forbiddingly cold landscape. When sledges broke from the rough trail, Matthew repaired them. When the ice cracked and split one night, breaking off one of the teams onto a swirling ice floe, it was Matt who grabbed the men and dogs and sledges off the floe as it slammed past. Finally, on April 1st, the last of the relay teams, led by seasoned explorer Captain Bartlett, stood ready to go with Perry to the pole. But Perry, wanting to ensure his success, chose wisely.
Captain, I'm sorry, but your team will be returning to base camp. It has to be Matthew who goes with me for the last run to the pole. I need Matt. I can't get along without him.
And so the final run began with a team composed of Perry, Matthew, and 4 Eskimos. At midnight on April 2nd, they started out, forging ahead on the trail for 10 long hours before making camp. The next day, they came to a lead that was covered with newly frozen ice. Thinking the ice would hold, Matt, driving the leading sledge, urged the dogs forward.
Across you go! The ice gave way! Matt! Matt!
In an instant, Matthew Henson had gone straight down into the icy Arctic Ocean. As the water closed over his head,
Mari Pollock! Mari!
Without a second's delay, Uta reached down, grabbed Matthew's hood, and hauling upward with superhuman effort, managed to pull him up onto solid ice.
Utsa,
Quickly, Mari.
I know. I'm out of my boots.
I'll get your dry ones from the sledge.
Once in his dry boots, Matthew pounded out the ice that was already forming in his furs. It was a race against time before he was frozen solid in his clothes. And then they were off again. The party of sledges charged across the great ice cap once more. So eager was Perry to reach his goal after all the failed attempts of the past that he hardly allowed the expedition party to rest. Yet Perry himself often had to ride on one of the sledges because of fatigue. Hour after exhausting hour, they plunged forward. Amazingly, somehow, Matthew could always accurately estimate the distance traveled over the seemingly endless ice. And finally, on April 5th, he announced that they had now marched about 100 miles. Perry decided to take a reading to determine their location.
Aha! Only 35 miles to go.
Make camp, men! Tomorrow we go for the pole!
At midnight, they were off again, with Matthew driving the lead sledge. Once he estimated that they had covered the distance, he called back to Perry, who was about 50 feet behind.
I think we're here, sir. I'll get your observation instruments ready.
And sure enough, it looked as if they may have landed on the very spot. That night, they built igloos, and the next morning, Perry traveled a short distance in several directions, only to discover that in each case, he was actually traveling south. That meant that they had indeed found the North Pole.
Matthew, the exact spot lies just behind our igloos.
You did it, sir. At long last, you are standing on the very top of the world.
In order to memorialize the occasion, Perry took a picture of Matthew standing at the North Pole, holding a flag of the United States and flanked by the 4 Eskimos who had accompanied them. It had taken 18 years and 8 trips across the forbidding Arctic ice cap for Perry and his assistant Matt Henson to finally realize their dreams. But now, here they stood, the first men ever to reach the geographic North Pole, and eventually, all the world would recognize their amazing achievement.